It's on you.
Looks like well, we'll just relax for another minute or so and see if we can resolve a little tech issue here. Everybody can follow the meeting.
You were waiting for him?
And I don't know. I didn't see him.
Rules will be clear. Rules will be clear.
Yeah, right.
You have to be here.
Yeah, that's not.
Still ready, right?
Yeah,
If it sounds
right.
Are we able to proceed, Councilor Brayton, or are you still trying to get the agenda?
I did. I think I'm getting it. Right on.
Got it?
Yep.
Okay, fair enough. Okay. Thank you for your patience, everybody. I'll go ahead and call this evening's meeting of council to order on December 9th. Please note that the council chambers have reopened to the public. Meetings will continue to be live streamed and available for public viewing on YouTube. As part of the virtual public participation, if you have any questions regarding items on tonight's agenda, please submit them by email to mail@ektwp.ca. Questions received prior to the meeting will be addressed during the public question period, which is limited to 15 minutes. We begin this regular council meeting by acknowledging that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Algonquin First People. We do so respecting both the land and the Indigenous people who continue to walk with us through this world. Now, before I call for seconder for adoption of the agenda, I'm going to draw your attention to item 6.2. This is the report around the security upgrades. I'm fine with what was presented in the report for public consumption. I can see questions and discussion around this getting fairly detailed, especially since there was new information that I received just today. So with council's indulgence, I'm going to suggest that we shift item 6.2 to become the third item for our closed session, being 13.3, based on section 239 subsection 2A of the Municipal Act, where we are allowed to go into close to discuss the security of property of the municipality or local board. That way we can have a very free discussion about security matters on these properties and how we're dealing with them. Is council okay with that amendment? Okay, so I will then look for a mover and seconder that the regular meeting of the council agenda dated December 9th, 2024 be adopted as amended. Moved by Councilor Smith, seconded by Councilor Renault. All those in favor? Carries. Before we adopted the agenda, I should have sought council's indulgence. We do have Councilor Edie joining us virtually. Do we have any objections to that this evening? Okay, thank you for that. Moving then to declaration of pecuniary interest. Does any member have a pecuniary interest with regards to any item on tonight's agenda? And if so, what is the general nature? Okay, hearing and seeing none, we'll move on then to the adoption of the minutes. Looking for a mover and seconder for that, please. Moved by Councilor Renault, seconded by Councilor Osterhoff, that the regular meeting of council minutes dated November 25th, 2024 be adopted. Any corrections, questions, or concerns with regards to that set of minutes? Okay, not seeing any. All those in favor then? Carries, thank you. Okay, so that brings us to our first item of business on the normal portion of the agenda. That is with regards to the council vacancy. Item 5.1 is a discussion around selecting the candidate. And so I guess that discussion needs to begin with whether we're going to have that discussion in open or whether we are going to move into closed to discuss identifiable individuals. Once we've decided on that, then we can proceed accordingly. So any input on that from council? Councilor Smith.
So just for clarification, are you asking, should we go into closed session to vote or?
No, not to vote. We can't vote in closed session. Item 5.1 is just the discussion. Item 5.2 is the voting. It was split out on purpose so the council has the option of determining whether we're going to hold these discussions in open or whether we're going to hold the discussions in closed. But regardless, the voting is a separate matter and is done after the discussion, and the voting must be done in open and will be done. Oh, stay open. Okay, well, so I got now Councillor Osterhoff.
You're asking if we could have a few minutes, or I support the idea of having a closed session to discuss how we're going to go about this. Is that,
No, so we should not go into close to discuss procedurally how we're going to deal with the matter. So procedural discussions need to stay in open.
okay,
So what we need to deal with procedurally is, are we going to have the discussion about the candidates, about, how we're going to, propose which candidate is most suitable, that type of thing. Is that discussion going to take place in open? Or is that going to take place in closed? As per a previous report that staff prepared for us, other councils, in the region have handled this by first having the discussion in closed and then holding the vote in open as the municipal act requires. But I know that we did have some council members express a desire that perhaps this should be in open, and hence that's why we're dealing with this now as a council to decide, are we staying open or are we going into closed for the discussion about the individual? Councillor Brady?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have a problem of having discussion in open council or voting in open council. But I do have a problem. And I think it said on this, and that's what I was looking for. And I know I read it, that it said a member must be present. As Councillor Eady is not present, for as I'm concerned, and being up on there is not being present here. So what is it? Is it present here or present at home or present on the snowbank?
I'm going to turn to our administrator or clerk. I believe that our procedural bylaw was amended some 2 or 3 or maybe more years ago to clarify virtual participation. And my understanding is that virtual or physical is a level playing field. We enjoy all the same rights and opportunities when virtual as we do when physical is. Is that correct?
Yeah, when it was brought forward, Your Honor, it was that whether or not they were here or not, they had a voting privilege. You just had to ask permission of council at the beginning.
Okay, all right. Councilor Brady?
Follow up, how long are we going to put up with being a member absent at a council meeting? And it's been, to me, the last meeting we had was one of the more important meetings we had this year of picking a councillor. And I know that councillor, I know, was on holidays or busy in Montreal or somewhere. That was, and we knew that. But this councillor is, and I might just want to go to this thing of interest there of getting this on the table and either getting her here or getting her do whatever. I think it's about time, because I think she's missed more meetings than she's been here.
So if that's the discussion that you want to have, you can certainly do that. If I'm going to suggest that's a little bit beyond the scope of this item. However, if there's something specific that you want to do, you have an opportunity during the notice of the motion to give a notice of motion if that's the way that you want to proceed. Otherwise, we can turn to staff if we give them some direction to come back with a report on what our options are. How do you want to proceed? It's council's decision, not yours or mine individually.
No, exactly, but I think I could wait till the first of the year. And if somebody wants to talk to her and make sure that she is here or can be here more or whatever. But I don't think it's fair to the ratepayers, or it's not fair to us.
So back to the discussion on how we're going to deal with the discussion around the candidates. I think I saw some other hands on that discussion as well. Councillor Smith?
We're just going back in the past. I was one of those candidates sitting in the gallery, so it was an open discussion. It was an open vote. I do not believe that the council today had went to a closed session to discuss anything. It was at that time, it was a it was a counselor who would move as a seconder of a candidate. And then once that was narrowed down to whatever candidates were selected to be voted on, then they were voted on. I don't have an issue of proceeding in open council. I don't see the sense of going to closed session myself. Like we've all heard presentations. We've got the information to these individuals, and it's time for council to make a decision.
So you're suggesting we just move directly to 5.2 and have the vote then at this point?
Yes. Yeah, I have no problem with that.
Okay, Councilor Osterhoff?
I'm comfortable with that as well, but the word discussion of 5.1 didn't give any indication what the discussion was about.
Right.
So coming here into this room tonight, I thought it was a discussion to explain to me how the vote's gonna happen, because I had a good conversation with someone this afternoon, but I'm still wavering as to what I preconceived was going to happen, what might happen.
Right.
So I would like to be clear before we start how the process goes.
Yep, and I think the intention of simply listing it as a discussion was because there were multiple facets. So if you want to have some discussion around the procedure, I suppose there's potential to do that, although I will draw your attention to past staff reports that have laid that out, that we accepted and didn't give any direction to the contrary. So what's come forward to us tonight is simply a reflection of what we accepted along the way. So there's that aspect of the discussion, the open and closed, and then if it's going to be an open, are we going to have any discussion about the candidates themselves? So it was a broad umbrella item to encompass all of those things before the vote takes place. So go ahead, Paul.
Well, so I'll still say I'm asking 11, does the mayor vote?
I believe so. We have to, yeah.
So there's point two. If there's a possibility that we have a tie, what happens in case we have a tie?
I believe according to convention and maybe even our procedural bylaws, certainly Robert's rules, a tie vote is considered lost.
I don't get that. Go ahead. I
So-
don't get that because if I understood correctly, I have one vote.
Right.
But we all have one vote. So
Right.
that we go through 7 names, but there's only, let's say, one person gets 3 votes and another person gets 3 votes and not the rest 0. I'm just assuming
Yeah.
we have 2 individuals with 3 votes.
Oh, okay. So you're not talking about an individual vote where there might be a tie amongst council for that particular candidate, where it might be like 3 and 3 council votes. You're talking about a tie between candidates in number of votes. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, either way.
Okay,
But no, but there's only one way.
right. In the way that this is presented, unless we change it, the candidates are going to be presented to us and I guess we need some clarity if the clerk is going to oversee this or, since I get a vote, am I still going to oversee the process? That's a question to be answered. But regardless of that, what's being proposed is the names of the candidates are going to be presented to us in a particular order, namely alphabetical. And the vote will take place for that particular candidate that's being presented. And the threshold to be the selected candidate is a minimum of 4 votes. So a majority of council electing to support that particular individual who is being presented to us at that time. So I guess for that particular vote, or on a per person basis, there could be a tie amongst council since we have an even number of people. And so what I'm saying is that in that particular case, the tie would come out to 3 in favor, 3 against. And regardless of the tie, they haven't met the 4 vote threshold anyway, so they would not be the successful candidate who would move down the list.
No, okay.
I think
don't
that's what's
understand that. I
intended.
don't agree with that. I don't understand if I'm getting the gist of what you do, I don't agree with that. You can't eliminate a person with just 3 votes.
Right. Okay.
Because I'm saying those 3 people that voted for that person cannot vote again. And I'll say 1 or 2 persons later, just options. There's another 3 votes for another person. Well, that person's out too.
Okay, so let's get clarity around that. So I see our staff maybe have.
There's only 2 people with 3 votes. To me, they're the only 2 that go to the next round.
Okay.
But I'm sorry, I'm just asking questions.
Yeah, no, it's good. We've got to get this right. I don't have a problem with that. So let's see if we can get some clarification from staff.
Certainly, and through your worship. So the staff report that you received earlier this year, I guess November 15th, staff report A2464 did set out the voting procedures, and it tried to cover off most of those those eventualities. So if there's a vote where there is more than two candidates who have received votes, the lowest vote would drop out, and all the lowest votes would drop out. So you would be left with, ultimately, you're going to come down to two candidates that you would ultimately be voting for, and that would be your only vote. If there was still a tie, the procedure says that during a voting round, if there is a tie vote between two candidates, for example, 3 votes each, then the chair will seek to determine consensus between council so that the majority vote, at least 4, may be given to only one candidate. If after discussing amongst council a consensus is not reached and the 2 candidates remain at 3 votes each, then the successful candidate will be drawn by lot. The lot will be drawn by the clerk. The name that is drawn from the lot will be the successful candidate and will be appointed as councillor.
Yes.
So then, so I just need to clarify around each member council gets 1 vote. So that is 1 vote for the entire pool as it exists in that particular round, is what you're saying. Oh, okay, fair enough. Okay.
So within the first round, one candidate had 3 votes, 1 candidate had 2 votes, and 1 candidate had 1 vote. The candidate with 1 vote and any other candidates would drop off the list, and then you would re-vote again with 2 candidates that remain. And then you would have a choice, hopefully, of 4.
Okay, Councillor Brady.
Thank you. The candidate would have to be nominated and a seconder.
Well, no, not according to this. According to this, that the list of candidates is going to be presented to us one at a time in alphabetical order. So no nomination or seconder. Simply, here's your candidate. Who's in favor of this particular candidate? Hands go up, we count, and we keep on moving on the list. Councillor Oldrop?
Thank you, Mayor. So I agree also, but if you count the positive votes, we don't have to count the no votes.
No, I get it. So this will not be a traditional vote in terms of opposed.
No.
It will simply be, you're either voting for that candidate or you're
And
not.
stop.
That's right.
They count the positive votes and stop, and then go to the next candidate.
That's right. If we haven't reached the threshold of 4.
Because I want to say I'm not actually opposed
Sure.
to anybody, but
Yeah.
I'm going to be in a position to have to vote, and I will.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, any other discussion around the procedure? All right, so I think that's pretty clear. And so now are we going to have any other discussion, whatever nature that may be, before we actually move on to 5.2 to deal with the vote? Councillor Smith?
Not a discussion, I just want to make a few points, if you don't mind.
Sure. Get out of line, I'll let you know.
Yeah, I'm used to that. First of all, I want to thank the candidates who did put their name forth to be on council to fill the vacancy. You're all winners just by putting your name forth and presenting to council. Shows your interest in municipal government. I know how you're feeling right now. I was one of you in 2008. Just like you, I was one of 12 candidates sitting in the gallery, just hoping to hear my name chosen to fill the vacancy on council. Unfortunately, I wasn't the one chosen. But that didn't discourage me from continuing my community involvement, participation on township committees, or attending council meetings. This has actually prepared me for the 2010 municipal election. Very similar to what hopefully you guys are doing tonight. So first I want to thank you for your interest in municipal government, for your community involvement and serving on township committees. It's not just council, it's people like you that makes Elizabethtown-Kitley what it is today. It's a fantastic place to live, to work and play. So however the voting goes tonight and however I vote, I want to say thank you. You're all excellent candidates. I look forward to be working with the successful candidate beginning next week. As I said, I want to encourage you also to think about the 2026 election. And hopefully I will be here again, and I'd love to have the opportunity to work with all of you at that time. So thank you and good luck.
You might not be here.
Well, exactly. You never know.
All right, if nobody else has anything else, then I guess we will turn it over to our clerk department to administer the vote.
Thank you, Your Worship. So we'll start by reading each candidate's name in alphabetical order. If you want to vote for that candidate, please raise your hand. We'll record that vote. You can only vote once per round. So Colquhoun, Mike Colquhoun. DeCoste, Yves DeCoste. Downey, Dan Downey. Elliott, Brian Elliott. Hill, Linda Hill. Kinch, Leanne Kinch. And Salmon, Paul Salmon. No, I don't believe I saw Councillor Edie's vote.
The first one,
Right.
What was her response?
The first one.
First candidate.
Michael Connolly, thank you.
So in the first round, we have 2 votes for Mike Colquhoun, 3 votes for Dan Downey, and 1 vote for Leanne Kinch. So in this case, Leanne and the other candidates who didn't receive votes will drop off. And so we'll proceed with votes for Mike Colquhoun and Downey. So we'll start again. Mike Colquhoun. And Downey, Dan Downey. So we have a tie. So according to the procedures that were set out in the staff report, which you just read, if there's a tie vote between 2 candidates, for example, 3 votes each, then the chair will seek to determine consensus between council so that a majority of at least 4 may be given to only 1 candidate. So it's going to go over to you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, well, I'd like to say that I have some pearl wisdom in terms of how to start this off. I have to say I don't really have any wisdom. Obviously, we each had our reasons for picking our first and second choices and so on as the vote came along. But we have a decision to make, and now we're faced with at least one, if not more, person is going to have to be swayed. So I guess the first thing I'll do is I'll provide an opportunity to council for anybody to weigh in. And if there aren't any contributions, then hopefully by then I will have thought of something new. So anybody have any comments to share now that we're down to 2 candidates rather than a full setting? Councillor Olshaw.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My vote was placed with the gentleman that Dan Downey. When we have a vacancy created here, we thought it was prudent not to hold an election, and because of the cost, and I totally support that. So we're in this position. I think one of the main reasons I appreciate his skill sets, but he's got experience as a counselor. And I'm coming from the point where 2 years ago, I was a new counselor, and with the support of staff and fellow counselors and you, I learned a lot in a year and 2 years. And I feel comfortable today. But it's taken that long for me to even comfortable speaking out loud, but being involved in the discussions. I mean, I have a real comfort talking to staff and asking questions. They appreciate that, but it took time for me to get there. And I think the township will get best value right now with somebody that can go on the ground running with past experience. We have some challenges and we need, good eyes and good, experience that will be, I don't want to say more effective counselors faster. That's my impression. I'm not to discredit any other name on the list or the gentleman second, or sorry, or tied with. But those are the reasons I voted the way I did. And I'm asking one of the three of you if you could change your mind and support that as well. Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Brady.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with what the colleague said. I sat in council with Dan Downey. He's a capable, he was a capable councillor at that time, and I know he ran for mayor, and he wasn't successful. But that didn't change his mindset. He was prudent and with the dollars, and in fact, we were, I don't know whether you realized it or not, but we were calling it Dan Downey budget, because Dan was always looking after the dollars for the people of the township. I agree with Henry, because you sit in this chair here, and I've been here 18 years and I still don't know nothing. It takes a long time to maybe get your ducks in a row or whatever, and it's common sense, but it takes a while to get the common sense out and about. And it's nothing again of the rest of the candidates. There's one of the candidates I've known for a lot longer. I've known Dan, but I've never known him as a counselor or a business. But there's nothing reiterating what Councillor Smith says. It's not a disrespect for anybody. I'm all kudos for you to put your name up and to run. And we needed somebody. We need somebody. And you can see here the fluster, the candidates that you see. 2 empty seats tonight, 3 empty seats the other night, and we need all the seats filled to get the job done that we're expected to do from the ratepayers. And we try to do the best we can with what we have, and I'm not going to change my mind. I'm going to stick with what I thought, and Dan gives us some input from the north end, which Ellie's from the north end, and he's been a big supporter for the people out there, and as well as people here. And I just think it was the best thing to do at this time for the township to get somebody with Dan's experience and drive on, and 2 years time, there's another election, and put your name in there and get the people to put you in. That's all I can say. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Smith.
Thank you. Just to add what the 2 other colleagues just stated, Mr. Downing also kept his pulse on township affairs, even though he was not elected as mayor for the last 2 terms. But his pulse is always there. He's always, you can tell he's been interested and he's keeping up to what's going on in the township. As he mentioned in his presentation about the North Augusta Road property we have, and we're trying to develop that into industrial, and that's one of our biggest projects we're facing with right now. And I think he could be a very good candidate to be on council to help us go in the steers in a little bit of the right direction and to keep us going. So there are my comments. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else at this time? Councillor Renault?
Well, I chose the way I did because I got a number of phone calls from people that watched last 2 weeks ago, I guess it was, and gave me suggestions on who they thought would be the best candidate. So I was going with that.
Councillor D, you don't have to, but there's an opportunity if you wish.
I chose Mike because I just felt he was a good candidate with his experience on the committees and such. And I also had a couple people enjoyed his speech the most. I'm also really on the path of trying to move our township forward, which I kind of feel like we're not going to go that way if we have Dan on the committee again. So on our council. So that's why I'm going to go stick with Mike.
Okay. So that leaves me. Of course, I'm in the awkward position that Dan and I ran against each other in 2 elections. But if anybody has been watching the meetings, you'll know that I insist that council deal with the what, not the who. And so in making my decision, I would have some concerns, I'll be honest, to support Dan as a candidate. Councillor Smith has suggested that he's kept his pulse on what's going on with the township. If that were really the case, I believe he was sitting at the council when the idea of putting the OPP as a line item on the tax bill was discussed. And it was determined that the municipal act, or maybe misspeaking, maybe some other piece of legislation, but that's essentially not an option for us. So to bring it up again causes me a little bit of a concern. We know during the election, the election issue essentially came down to debt and reserves, claims that we've depleted the reserves, recent claims that we've increased our debt. That's not true. And as much as Councillor Brayton at this meeting has spoken very positively about what previously he's called a very painful process, budgeting process to go through line by line. I was surprised to hear you support that budgeting process, because at every other meeting you've spoken out against it, and I have that same concern. This council has decided to take a particular direction. I think if we're replacing somebody in a seat, we need to take into account the way that the team is already working. And do we want to disrupt that, or do we want to continue at least this term functioning the same way the team has functioned in the first half of the term? So for that reason, as you saw, I changed my vote based on the elimination of candidates. I do think that Mr. Colquhoun has the background in policy reading and policy development to be an asset to our team. And so that's why I lent my support to him. So at this point, we've all heard each other's positions on that. Really don't know whether to expect that we're going to change those positions or not, but I'll give one final opportunity if anybody wishes to share anything, and then I guess we'll turn it back over to staff after that to conduct another round of voting. Councilor Brayton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You got to remember that these candidates don't know what we've been up to. So if we have a line item and we've changed that has no bearing on who the candidate should be. No bearing at all, because there's 6 of us, there's 7 of us in this room that gets to vote. So are you telling me that one person's got an idea, has got the, want to change everybody, or? I don't think so.
Are you talking about for the purposes of this vote?
Yeah, for the purposes of voting, I think it's still a majority still prevails here, I think. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, we'll go ahead then and turn it back over to staff to conduct another round, and I don't think a clear consensus developed. So will be the next step.
So thank you, Your Worship. And so with no clear candidates, a lot will be drawn. So the deputy clerk is good.
Should we vote one more time?
I would think so.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, while there was no clear consensus, I don't know whether anybody's gonna change their mind or not. So I think it's prudent to do it a second round, then we'll know for sure. There's no shadow over the process, and if necessary, we can go to drawing from.
Calhoun, Mike Calhoun, Councillor Renault, Councillor Burrow, and Councillor Beatty. And Dan Downey, Councillor Wrighton, Councillor Smith, and Councillor Wilson. No, no. Your worship, it's Downey, Dan Downey.
Congratulations, sir. With that, moving out of the vote, we do have a motion on the seat to fill in here. So the motion is the council appoints Dan Downey to the office of council for the remainder of the 2022 to 2026 term of council, and that the necessary bylaw be prepared. Be enacted. Well, we can't just enact the bylaw, it has to be prepared, then we vote on the agenda bylaw. Right. I'm just not comfortable with the wording of being enacted. That sort of gives an action to the bylaw itself. So I'm going to amend that to be prepared, which has already been done. And then we can actually vote that on with later. So a mover and seconder for that, then, please. Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Brayton. All those in favor? And opposed, if any? Okay, that carries. Thank you.
We really need to destroy the ballots.
Yes, I suppose we should destroy the ballots.
Motion to destroy the ballot.
Yep, thank you. Seconder for that. Councillor Brayton. All those in favor? And opposed, if any?
That was a lot quicker than the state
That's
did.
carried. Thank you, everybody, for your participation in that. So we'll move on then to staff reports, item 6.1. This is a report with regards to the establishment of an Ontario Rural Road Safety Program. The motion is the council receive staff report PW 24-17 for information, and the council direct staff to complete a resolution of support for the establishment of an Ontario Rural Road Safety Program. And further, that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to Premier Doug Ford, Honorable Pradmeet Sakaria, Minister of Transportation, Honorable King Surma, Minister of Infrastructure, Honorable Rob Flack, Minister of Agriculture, Honorable Lisa Thompson, Minister of Rural Affairs, Honorable Trevor Jones, Associate Minister of Emergency Preparedness and Response, and Honorable Sylvia Jones, Minister of Health and Good Roads. And further, that this resolution be circulated to all municipalities in Ontario requesting their support. So that is the motion. Looking for a mover and seconder. And then we'll see if staff has anything to add before we begin discussion. Moved by Councillor Renault, seconded by Councillor Smith. So I'll turn it over to staff if you have anything to add at this point, or say yours from it. Okay, fair enough. So I will open up the floor for discussion. Councillor Renault.
So if we pass this. Is there definitely money from the province for that? Because quite frankly, after watching Marketplace, I think it's the province that is the problem here. They don't keep their own roads safe. They are allowing truckers to buy licenses to not be trained properly. It was terrifying watching that show, thinking I never want to go on the road again. Because there are so many of them that never have gotten proper training in the last, I don't know, 10 years or more. Not getting it. Plus, when they need to get a license, the province isn't the one giving the license, it's privately done, and they're buying them. So that's scary. So why don't they clean up their own house before they look at us at keeping roads safe and do something about, because it's the poor drivers, it's not the poor road. So how do we, as a municipality, fix the poor driver? If we make the roads really good, they're only going to drive faster. You pave a road, they drive faster.
Interesting.
So I'm just wondering how this is gonna work, because I'm all for safe roads, but I don't think we should be paying for it. If they're paying for it, and we're just doing the study for them, fine. But perhaps they should look in their own backyard.
Anybody else? Councilor Oldrow?
The question maybe for clarity in that, when you read the recommendation, did that include the last line, further that the resolution be circulated?
Yes.
Would that be our staff job to do that?
Yes, but I believe there is a mechanism to do that. I don't think that we need to ferret out contact information for every single
Okay,
municipality.
that's pretty pretty fast process. Okay, it's not complicated.
All right, any other discussion on this before I call the questions?
Didn't get 100% answer on it. They're paying for that.
Well, I can turn to staff. I'm not sure that we have the answer, but maybe we do. Mr. Metcalf?
The intent of the program is to make a grant program. So the idea, how it was explained to me, Good Roads would administer the program, and each municipality would be allotted a figure once that number is determined. So for easy math, we say $100,000 would be allocated to Elizabethtown-Kitley. They would come do an assessment, which would cost $25,000, which would come off the top of what would be allowed. And then the $75,000 would be to complete the necessary works that they deem. So it could be sight lines, it could be curves, widening of curves, or it could be like talks about the variable message signs, to say, the slippery roads and County Road 7, those kind of things could be used with those dollars. So it's trying to implement a grant program to bring some of these safety concerns addressed.
Okay, so I'll follow up by Councilor Nolan, and I'll get to you, Councilor Oldrow.
That doesn't sound like it's near enough money for starters, but that's okay. It was just the number you were throwing out there. So they're gonna give us the money so we can go around and say how unsafe our roads are, but they're not going to give us any money to widen the road or straighten a bend in the road, or even to put up a sign. So then again,
Well, point of clarification, so they,
Yeah, please.
the allotment, the $100,000 is just a
yes, just a figure.
So it'll be divided equally amongst the municipalities that meet the criteria, and you'll get an allotment, and then you may have $1 million worth of things that are flagged that need to be done, and you only get 500,000. It's gonna be an annual thing, and the idea would be to keep working towards improving those
So they're gonna give money
to us.
to do the repairs.
Yes.
All right, okay, thank you.
Whether or not
That
it's
wasn't-
sufficient remains to be
Yeah,
argued
yeah,
and seen.
that
but-
wasn't really
yeah.
clear in the,
Sorry.
in all the different documents, so that makes, thank you.
Okay, Councilor Oldrow?
I think you're heading in that direction, but you were saying that it would be a grant for the project. Like most of the project would be triple the cost, we'd get some assistance with.
We'd be allowed to spend it basically on the project at our discretion. It'd have to be like, so, for example, at the end of, Kitley Line 1, near the, Rio Lakes down line, there's a Y intersection. They would come and say, no, you should, it's got a stop sign in the middle of it. They would say, you should upgrade this intersection to a T intersection with a stop sign. And then they would estimate, okay, it's $40,000 to complete that work. Then we would use 40,000 to complete that work, and then it would be checked off their list. That's the intent.
Okay, that's better than a $10,000 for a $50,000 job.
Right.
Because we have enough time, difficulty doing our $100,000 jobs as it is. That would make us put money aside for these jobs that are designated for this program. Okay,
Okay, anybody else? Okay, I'll go ahead and call the question then. All those in favor? Okay, and opposed, if any? Okay, that carries. We did move the next item further down our agenda to close. I'm gonna skip over 6.2 for now. So on to 6.3, this is our building activity report. The motion is that report B-14-24, November 2024 building activity report be received. A mover and seconder for that, please. Moved by Councilor Brayton, seconded by Councilor Smith. Any discussion around this item? Okay, all those in favor? Oh, sorry, Councilor Oldrow, go ahead.
just financial implications, permit fees, like how much septic fees total this year? Is that on the next
Year to date.
39,000?
Yeah, that would be under the year.
Is that close to what we were hoping for, or is that more than, are we excited about the number of systems that we've Have we been justified in switching of what we do, how we're managing that?
Madam Treasurer?
I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but I do know that the building department is in very good shape. And the extra, there is extra revenue. We've had lots of activity and permits this year, which we may still have next year. I don't know. It's nobody has a crystal ball as to see interest rates impact whether people are building, and there's all of that stuff. So, but yes, it is in very good shape, and there's likely more revenue there than what we budgeted.
Okay, thank you.
Never enough, and
I think I know that.
Well, the people who pay them probably think otherwise, but, any other discussion on this item? Okay, I'll call a question on receiving that then. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you. Presume we're keeping an eye out in the waiting room in case Councillor reconnects. All right, moving on to the next item in our agenda, 6.4. This is from our Director of Finance with regards to the starting line, I guess, of the proposed budget. The motion is that report F-24-21 with attachment A1 and attachment A2 be received for council's consideration, and the council direct staff to amend the budget as discussed. So I'll look for a mover and seconder for that, and we can begin our discussion. Moved by Councillor Osterhoff, seconded by Councillor Smith. Madam Treasurer, did you have anything you want to add at this time?
Yes, I probably should add. So obviously, this is nowhere near the preliminary municipal price index that was presented in October, that the target was 2.5 for operations. I have presented this to help, for you to help staff guide us to get us closer to that. We have some struggles. OPP was one of them, but that has now been tempered. But there's still insurance cost increases, and there's various things that are in the report that are causing the interest rate, because I have to budget 50,000 less for interest now because the interest rates have gone down. So that's a hit. There's decreases in some of our funding. But on top of that, there's the level of service that was provided last year. Now, mind you, that level of service put us in a deficit position, or will, and I don't have 2024 figures, obviously. I don't have all of the information I need to help you make a final decision on this or anything. This is very preliminary, and it's just staff are looking for guidance as in the direction we want to go. There was a lot of work that was done last year that wasn't budgeted for, and we're trying to cipher out if council wishes to continue with that same plan. Because if that's the case, we need to budget more, right? And we don't want to wind up with a deficit again. So direction from council as to service levels, I guess, for all intents and purposes, to see if we can, we need to, if we want to target the 4% that was presented on the MPI, we need to reduce this by 410,000. The operations, the capital sits with the 1.5 increase. I don't recommend we touch that. But if we want to reduce this, it's about 76,000 for each percentage. As I understand it, based on all of the feedback I'm getting through our treasurer's group, most municipalities are in the same boat. I haven't seen anything that's been less than 5% from our neighbors or anywhere around. But like I said, you're looking for guidance. If you want the same service level, it's gonna be where we're sitting. But we're looking for guidance.
So just before I turn over for council to discuss, I'm going to zero in on the OPP for just a minute for a little bit of context. and also exercising part of my duty and getting the point of clarification. So, when we set the 4%, I recall that, OPP was the big question. We didn't know, we were hopeful that there would be some help. We didn't know what that would look like, what it would actually quantify as. Now we have that information. So here's me dispatching that to my TV, as much as we criticize the province from time to time when we talk about, the roads and the driver system and that type of thing. When they hear us loud and clear as a group of municipalities, I think it also behooves us to acknowledge that, to thank them for that assistance. And so they have stepped up in a big way, understanding that this came as a surprise to all of us. However, as much as that help is substantial and appreciated, the net to us is still almost 1%. And I do recall when we said that 4% target, that was not including the OPP because we don't know how that's going to shake out. So I just wanted to remind council of that as we're talking about that. We now know that essentially the proposed levy, if our direction was taken, would end up having to be 5%. It's the 4% that we had control of, plus now basically the 1% that OPP is doing to us. So just to paint a little bit of a picture. Question for you, and Director, is great that the province has helped us out in this year. What we know that what has driven this in large part is the collective agreement that was established, and that was a 3-year agreement. So we can sort of predict, maybe not accurately to the dollar, but we know that the next 2 years are going to include some not small increases as well. I guess what I'm looking for is, have I become so cynical that I'm thinking there's the original gap that we're being helped with, but we're only being helped with that for this year. That gap still exists next year, plus whatever next year's gap is going to be. So are we going to be in double jeopardy next year? Or does this really in fact help us? And this is the new baseline moving forward for a big enough jump. Don't get me wrong, but you know what I'm asking, and can you give an answer?
I'm not sure I can give an exact answer, but the reconciliation costs were for 2 years previous, so the 2023.
Right.
My concern is that next year, they budgeted properly for 2025 with the increases and so forth. They've given us a number.
Right.
But I expect that we're going to have a reconciliation for 2024 that's going to probably equate to the same thing that happened in 2023. So probably we should expect $100,000 reconciliation on top of whatever they budget for 2026. It'll take a year to catch up to us.
Right. All right, thank you for that. So with that point of clarification, I don't want to poison the well, so I'll open up the floor for discussion around the things we can control. Councillor Everett.
You said you have about 76.1%. I'm looking at the numbers just in the roads here. And you said level of service. None of those things that I see in roads, to me, is a level of service, but more a level of safety. Even cutting the roadways, side of the road, the ditch, whatever you want to call it. Even cutting that is a safety. From wild cars, just so that you can see. Some of these cars are fairly low, and they're really high. You can't see to enter the intersection. So I'm not saying, I mean, we take 1% and take all these out, but all of those seem to me to be a safety thing. Yeah, you need calcium to keep the dust down. You need gravel to keep the road safe to drive on. You got to do the repairs to the equipment. I can't see where you're going to take anything out of there. So then where's that kind of leaving you to take money out of it's going to actually add up to much of anything? Yeah, you could take it out of rec, but that's $2. So I'm not like taking it down 1%. I'm trying to figure out a place there where we can find 1%, but that's just my thought.
Okay, anybody else? Councillor Ostroff?
I have several questions and they're random, but if I'll start with one, you tell me when to quit. In all these numbers are, where are the wages? What was like it for our roads crew? That's not under clerk administration, right?
No,
No, I'm just, but I need clarity. Or is there wages under all in roadside and paved road and gravel road, each one of them?
Yeah.
Wow, and then so it's, to me, it's all hidden in there. So, but hidden may not be the wrong word. I don't see it. So, what percentage of that, those expenses are wages? That's a question I have, whether, and then do I ask for an answer or do we keep on going?
Yeah, but let's try and
Yeah.
answer the sequence to the best of our ability on the spot.
I don't have the percentage that the roads, I do have it because in my process where I have noted that I don't know for sure if the November CPI is gonna be 1.5, but that's what we've built in here because that's the agreed cost of living increase percent. So we have put 1.5 on the wages that were budgeted last year. There are, however, some changes in staffing that may not make it an exact 1.5 increase. What I did, I have a spreadsheet that has everybody in it and the calculation of the payroll costs and all of that. I can bring that information to you as in a different report format where we look at what the wages are, what the, so more like the municipal price index, where you're not looking at it by department, you're looking at it by type of cost. I can do that for you at the next meeting, but I have increased, everybody has budgeted with a 1.5% increase. So what we do is take that bucket for public works is all broken down on their timesheet, so we can gauge if they've worked on a construction project or if they've worked, so that we know we get closer to the actual costs for these items. This is how we have to report on our FIR. So that's why things are broken down this way. Everything finance is driven to that reporting model that I have to work with the auditors to get. And this is the way it's broken. So we have to do the best we can to make sure the guys are allotting their time to the things they're doing on their time sheet. So I can give an accurate account to the project.
Go ahead.
Okay, so personally, whether it's possible or not, I wouldn't mind if there's an asterisk beside whichever ones include late wages or which ones are just material and like, are they all? Like, go down to even Parks and Recreation, like every one of them individually, Lynn, Ball Down, Rouse Corner, is it wages involved in each one?
There's not very much,
No,
but if the public works department goes out and does something at one of the parks, yeah, we code machine time and.
it's all in there. Okay, I have to get my head around that. Yeah.
And I guess if I may, the idea behind that is that then we have I won't say an accurate picture, but the most accurate picture we can on what it costs to deliver any given particular service. And I've seen in many years past where it was done differently. And there was always this question around, yes, but we can't really marry everything, but we don't understand how much winter control is costing, how much road maintenance is costing. And so over the years, it's very common to see things presented this way to understand the cost of delivery of any given service. And then that's why the treasurer was talking about service levels, because then we can decide, do we want to increase or decrease service levels? But you can't make that decision until you know what it costs to deliver the service the way you're delivering it right now. So just a little bit of background.
And I appreciate that, but still, to me, there's still two things, the service and the delivery.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the cost of delivering the services are labor, to me. And the service or the value, I can't tell which, if roads, gravel road maintenance, 664 budgeted. Like, I can't tell if 64,000 was the labor and 600 was the service provided, or the other way around.
Right. Sure.
And I'd like to know. I don't know if it's important to anybody else. I just, and maybe somebody's gonna prove to me I don't need to know that, but right now, I think I do. That's my, sorry, I live
That's
that. I,
You have more questions?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
January first, there's a change in recycling and waste sites, like, is that incorporated into here already?
The best I can.
Just a brief summary, who's responsible for more of the cost? Like, are we getting a reduced cost as a township?
Do you want to, or do you want me to?
You're holding the hot potato right now.
I don't know.
So, I'll start back when it all started. I mean, this started 5-6 years ago. The producers, being the people that
Make,
make the product, have been giving us a grant. They all contribute to a spot where we get grant money based on a data call that we fill out saying what we spent on doing recycling. Okay, and then we got a grant to help pay for that. The producers decided that they didn't want to pay this grant anymore. They feel like they could do it for less money than what the municipalities are saying that they're spending on providing this recycling service. So it began. There's a 5-year window. Lots of municipalities transitioned over the last few years, and it was a matter of opting in or opting out. Opting in meant this is the last year. This is the last year. These agreements, this came to council. Council decided that they didn't want to opt in yet. They wanted 1 more year of doing the service. So we are now our own contractor. Next year, we're going to have to enter into contracts with RPA, and they are going to provide those services themselves. This year, we get to honor our Limerick status quo, and RPA will pay us based on what was in that agreement. It's all broken out, $6 per pick. Like I don't know exactly the amount, but it's all laid out what they're going to pay us. And we will pay Limerick for the pickup. The depot or the landfill site is a different story. Eventually, they will have somebody coming and picking up the recycling bins at the landfill and taking them away. For this year, we're still going to have
this year, 2025?
2026, sorry.
25.
Oh, 2025, we're still doing it.
One more.
We decided, we opted out
Okay.
of the,
Future.
but in
proposed.
2026, we will be forced to opt in. And we won't have control over recycling per se anymore. So they're going to pay us.
Yeah.
They're gonna pay us this year.
Okay.
It's not a grant number like it has been in the past. It'll be based on a whole lot of stuff that are in those contracts, the rules that we have to follow in order to get the money back. Josh and Royal are appraised of what's going on. They're taking steps to make sure we have to report to them. We have to, so to the best of my ability, I have built for an estimate of the revenue we might receive from RPA.
As a representative on the local public library board, the library board had a communication into the township office in September, I think, and requested a discussion to be involved in planning for a possible playground. And I don't know where that request is sitting right now, what desk it's sitting, or we haven't been apprised of or invited to any time yet. Is that in here yet or not, or are we probably looking at another year?
Sorry, go ahead.
Like if it worked for me, that's
That would be a capital discussion. This is strictly operating for you. And just on that note, the committees have not given me, they're still working at the committee level to finalize budgets. So I've done estimates only. This is again preliminary. Heritage Committee, Library Board, all of those committees still need to come back to me with what they want for a budget.
Okay, thank you.
This is just estimated right now, what I think. Well,
Anything further? Or
Thank you for your patience. I can remember right. I got my points done. Yes,
okay,
Thank
fair
you.
enough.
thank you.
Any other questions for our treasurer at this point? Councillor Renault?
And I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure if finance or road can answer that.
Okay.
But when you talk service, we have, correct me if I'm wrong, Rob, a standard that we have to follow. So one road, the one or three islands, but you have your standards. And those standards are how we operate so that if somebody does fly off the road and go into the ditch, we can say, we met our standards, you just didn't slow down. But if we lower our service, is that lowering our standard, and do we have to lower our standard by law or something? I know that was quite the, you know, to get the standards set.
So which one of
You
you would
want
like
me to
to?
continue?
You go ahead.
Okay, so yes, there is a minimum maintenance standard that we have to abide by. But we have programs in place, like the gravel resurfacing program, where we do a certain amount every year. It's split out over, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it was half the township one year, half the township the next. That's fallen by the wayside. We've gotten behind. Whether we weren't budgeting enough or what was happening there, I'm not sure. But enter this year, there was more gravel resurfacing done to catch up. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't be increasing that budget to maintain that level of service of half the township this year, half the township the next. Council can say, let's do a third of the township, and spread it over 3 years, as long as we're meeting our minimum maintenance standards. But it will be a visual for the public. If you're not doing their road for every 3 years instead of every 2 years, that's a level of service drop. Staff are not going to just do that. We're looking for feedback from you as to whether that's something you might like to entertain to keep the budget down. Mind you, maintaining minimum maintenance standards is obviously utmost importance, rest of the township, all of that stuff. That all has to be taken into consideration when changing this type of thing. But that's what I'm looking for in the way of a level of service. I'm not suggesting we don't maintain minimum maintenance standards, and neither would the Public Works Department, because we just can't do that. That puts us at extreme risk, and our insurance company wouldn't cover it.
I just want to make sure we would.
So I see Councillor Brickman wanted in on this, and then I wanted in on this particular subtopic as well. And go ahead, Councillor Brickman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that it used to be the road will get it this year and you skip a year and the dollar needed. But I think the problem was got to that it was money. It was so many dollars. And then the price of the stone went up, and then the volume went down. And that's, I think, maybe where you're not getting your coverage of your roads. I think that's why.
But it comes at a cost.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And I got another question in mind.
So is that related to what we're talking about now or something else?
No, it was kind of something else.
Can I ask you to pause that just so we can stay on one topic and then come back and start another topic?
It's just, it's not budget.
Oh, but around road maintenance?
No.
Service? Okay, I'll come back to you, I promise.
Okay,
I have
don't
one.
forget.
No, I won't. I have one quick clarification about service level increase. So I understand why this year, we have spent more doing that. And believe me, people have noticed because I've got calls. I know other people have received calls, and I mean good calls, not negative calls for my opinion. But to me, to use this year then as the example, I've always been viewing, once I found out that was happening, all right, so this is a catch-up year. We'll get those potholes filled in and the gravel that was brought up to snuff. And then we can continue a decent maintenance level. So when you talk about the numbers that are presented here, have we essentially adjusted our future baseline based on these catch-up activities, which I think is skewed, if that's what we've done? Or have you determined that based on what Councilor Brayton just talked about, because the cost per material was going up, the volume went down to compensate, and now you're saying, well, we've taken a look at the volumes that are needed to go back to a decent alternating plan, and this is what that maintenance plan will cost. I just don't know how to interpret the numbers.
Sure. Chair to you, council. So in the past, we used to run about 20,000 tons on our roads. And then this year we put on 27, sorry.
Okay, well, I was a tender.
And then this year we put on around 44. So we were looking to bring it up to 30. And that's what we split the difference.
Okay. All right.
Try to get that, so we don't fall behind, but at the same time, keep the level of service.
Sorry, it just followed.
Go ahead.
And it is a biannual piece, right? So if the catch up one this year, 24 was 424,000, we still have the other half of the township that still needs to be caught up as well. So, but we did split the difference between 23 and 24 to be at the number where we should be at every year, and hoping that that's going to level us out.
Okay. All right. And I saw your hand, Councilor Osama. Still about the roads or something else? No, something else. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to Councilor Brayton then for your second question.
Oh, okay, thank you. Other years, we started in November, end of November, 1st December on budget. And we were lucky to get them in maybe August, signed off and through. Do you have a date this year that you would like to be done in 25?
Go ahead.
If I could, I think we've been pretty good since I've been here. I think
It's been better.
we've been passed by the end of February since I started this job.
For the last couple of years, yeah.
So I hope that we'll still be, actually, this budget is presented earlier than we started last year. Last year, we didn't even start till January. I've gotten this in front of you a little. The trouble with getting it in front of you early is I don't have all the information. I don't even have the assessments. So I can't give you a tax rate because I don't know what the 2025 assessments are. I can't give you certain information yet. We certainly don't have our year end done because we're not finished 2024 yet.
Right.
So all those things. So, but this is, again, a preliminary start just for you guys to provide feedback to us and direction, because as staff, we want to make sure that we're doing exactly what you want. If you want an increased level of service or a steady, then we have to budget for that. I don't want to put us in a position where we have a deficit. If we have equipment that we need to repair and we want to stay up on that program because it was left, then we need to budget for it, because I don't want to be in a deficit at the end of 2025. So please just accept this as this is not the final thing. We want to know how to get closer to a reasonable increase.
Do you have a final date that you were hoping for? Or
Yes, absolutely. In February.
February?
Yeah, we'll have
Okay.
capital to you the beginning of January.
Okay, February is good. I just wanted,
I know I like having the canary in the coal mine, so I would much rather put up with uncertainty and some variability and that type of thing, but have early indicators than wait and have more certain bad information in January. But that's my question for Councilor Osterhoff.
Yeah, thank you. And I do appreciate staff comments and explanations, because you're living this world. And I do it 1 or 2 days a week, you know, and then I dwell on it for a couple hours and I make a phone call. I need help here to understand this. And because with the information I have here, I don't know how wise we were as a team with our budgeting last year and how close we made it or not. I don't have that information. So
I don't either.
no, so that's what you're telling me tonight.
I projected,
Yes,
we
No.
did projections, staff did a projection,
but
but
the projection's not here. This is
no,
this is to date, the actual.
that's correct.
So it's incomplete information, like to me. I don't even see that line because it's an indicator, because if that's 11 months, I divide by 11 and add one more and I can figure out that we're close. But I said, I appreciate your preliminary to get us thinking. Can I go to the two questions that I forgot?
Yep, yep, you can remember them now.
Yep. We have in the past talked about having a property management staff. And I want to know where those expenses are hidden. I don't know, I use the word hidden, but I don't see them. So,
I did get approval, maybe not the last time we had a discussion, to break them out. I haven't done that yet because as I said, it's a bit of work and I wanted to get something in front of you so that we could have the discussion we're having tonight. But when I bring the operations budget to you again, I will have separated those out. So in January, on top of which I can probably give you a little better projection, not exact figures, but a better projection in January, because now I can turn my attention to do some year-end entries and some accruals, and those expenses are all going to impact the bottom line for 2024. I have an audit meeting this week on Thursday, so it will start, things will begin, and I'll start doing my adjusting entries. By February, we hope to have all of the invoices in. Sometimes we're chasing vendors to give us 2024 invoices. Most of the staff know what's coming and we can project. But it takes time to build that. So if you would like, I will do a projection along with an amended budget based on discussions tonight for council at the next budget meeting.
Okay, go ahead.
and again, I don't know when the right time to mention this or request this, but my experience on committees with council has been a good one. And we work with committed community members, residents on these committees. And I believe the per diem is too low. When do we discuss that it should go up a little?
Probably now would be about a good time, since staff is looking for indicators that are gonna affect.
That's what I thought, so
If you have any thoughts
where
on
do
that?
we go to it?
If council wishes, I can pull and see what the remuneration is to our neighbors. How do you want
I
to
would like
look
that
at that?
information, but
Council gets the 1.5, just as staff does. Well, they have since, as far as I know, since I've started, but yeah, I mean, it wouldn't hurt to look at the neighbors and see if we're still in the ballpark. Compensation
yeah,
review.
because a few months ago, we were setting up a local police association.
Mhm.
And we talked about a per diem for those members. And at that time, it was mentioned that we would do a review. And have that. So
You would like that as part of this budget?
I'd like to have that information that other people do, so I can ask, so we can recommend to you if it goes higher or not.
I will do a council remuneration report.
What, council, but the committee.
Oh,
members.
just
Committee.
committee.
Yes.
And council.
More of the committees, all the general public, I mean, all the good individuals that volunteer on our committees.
Okay,
I mean, driving a car is more expensive now than when was that? For stepping or per
the
diem?
mileage is very far
I'm
behind.
saying it's low.
Yep, yep.
That's my opinion. I'm just saying, can we discuss it sometime or what do the other townships pay?
Go ahead, then, Treasurer, and I'll see you, Councilor Ray.
Would council entertain a rate attached to either the province or the federal, that it just like a policy that says for mileage, it increases with the provincial one?
Yeah, but the committee members get a flat rate. Like, I'm talking about other residents from the township that are on committees.
Yeah, and I don't believe that committees get mileage
No.
consideration. It's just an honorarium.
Just a flat honorarium.
Oh,
Or
okay, so clearly we need a report to show us.
Depends on what they're doing,
What
not to come
committee?
to their meetings,
Right.
but to act on behalf of the, if they're
Oh,
doing
yes,
something on behalf.
yes,
of-
absolutely, yes.
Planning.
Right. Yeah, and so I have a follow-up question. Are there not CRA implications if we don't use the prescribed government mileage rate? I seem to recall with another hat on, I think it was even it might have been at the county where we got kind of a report around mileage and so on. And if I remember the details correctly, if you provide too much, it's not good.
Right.
But if you don't provide enough, I guess there are questions that are asked as well, and it's not good.
I haven't experienced that, but it's quite possible.
Okay, all right. And I think our administrator wanted to get in on this as well.
Thank you, Worship, and just, so that we're clear, if you can put a motion on the table to give staff direction rather than it just being what exactly you're looking for when you want it to come back. If you want it to come back as part of the budget process, or do you want it to come back as a separate report?
Okay, so yes, I'll go ahead and look after that. But based on something that I heard, I think that I'm gonna hold off on asking for that motion right now,
Sure.
rather than processing umpteen sort of micro motions. Just let the discussion unfold from Councilor Brayton.
Yeah, are we not supposed to look at this pay equity tonight?
No, not around budget.
Well,
And I would caution you, Councilor Brayton, I think, make sure that you're staying on this particular agenda items. So that's fine. If you have something to say around budget concerns, that's okay, but
this big budget gives I think that if I remember right, our former CAO said that it was supposed to be mandated that every 2 years that council review their pay.
well, I'm not familiar with that policy. Now, typically, I don't know by policy necessarily, but by convention, I've only ever seen both here and elsewhere. Councils undertake a review, but it's not to affect the current sitting members of council. Typically, a council will vote to undertake a review, typically a year before the end of a term, ready for the next incoming members.
No, because we already did it. We've already,
For council.
for council, it was probably 7 or 8 years ago. We got a raise.
Yeah.
And it's about time that was looked at about another raise.
Yep, well, I agree.
And it wasn't for the next council, it was for the sitting.
Okay, well, we can go ahead and have that discussion. I agree that after a number of years, it should be reviewed.
Yeah,
I have to say, I wouldn't feel comfortable as a sitting member voting on a pay that will increase us as the
Well,
sitting
I
members,
think-
but
I think if I remember right, you did at one time. Because I think it was in your time that we did. If not, it was just before.
well, I don't want to misspeak, so I won't say yes or no. We'll
Okay.
find out.
Okay, I don't mind.
Okay, Councilor Smith?
Maybe to help us with colleagues a little bit. So I think going back to Councilor Oosthoff's, be a motion, what staff's looking for. About you want to look at the honorariums for per diems for the committee members and mileage. And then tag on to that, Councilor Brayton also wants you to look at the neighbor municipalities on the council enumeration as well. That will put it all in one motion.
Yeah.
And then that information will come back.
Yeah, and I sensed that was
Well,
what was coming forward, so I
yeah.
thought, well, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, might as well do one motion. So you're moving that, are you?
Yeah, I'll move that.
Okay, so do I have seconded by Councilor Osterhoff. So the direction of that motion is to gather the information. We're not presupposing any.
No.
Right, so we still have an opportunity to decide whether we're going to allow it to affect ourselves. or not.
Yeah.
Yep. Correct. Okay, all good. So any other discussion on, sorry, Mr. Administrator?
Yes, could you put a time scale to that, when you would like to see that come back?
Tomorrow.
I don't think it's going to affect the budget tremendously. So would end of January be reasonable in terms of staff resources? Okay. Okay, is council satisfied with that?
I was gonna say, end
Yeah.
of January, it still gives us staff a month we want to
Yes.
incorporate that into the.
I don't care if it's 2 or 3 months, it should be done.
Okay. Well, but before we pass the budget, right,
Yeah.
since you brought it up at this time. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and call the question on that particular motion. All those in favor? Okay, that carries. Yes, Councilor Renault?
Can I just ask if the administrator is going to speak, if he speaks a little louder?
Oh, yes, for the
Thank
benefit
you.
of the microphone. Of
Well,
course.
benefit for this far away.
Okay. And if we, if one day we find ourselves with a decent audio visual, like audio system, in here, that will help to resolve itself as well.
Are we getting one?
Capital.
So I don't know. We'll see when the capital
We'll
budget
see
comes
when the
out.
capital budget comes out.
I think that's all, Councillor Smith, or did I say?
No, I'm good.
All right, fair enough. All right, any other discussion around the budget? Now, the staff is really bringing us, as I said, this canary in the coal mine. To look, again, not, I don't think very specific direction, just we asked them to do 4. The canary says over 11%. What feedback do we have for them? You know, do we want to adjust our 4? If so, by how much? And trigger?
Actually, it puts us about 9.33 because we do have some growth to the tune of 1% of this. It's 61,000 that we've generated for growth. So we can increase the budget by 61,000 without impact.
Okay,
So we're at 9.3.
okay. So we're more than, and that includes the OPP?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm gonna say we're basically double what we wanted because we said we were gonna park the OPP and that's about 1%. So just to put it in broad strokes, we had hoped to target for 4. I guess for what we have control of, we're a little over 8 right now. So what is the feedback that we're providing to staff? Is that something we can stomach? I know that, you know, we don't have all the details that we had an appetite for, but just like they provided us with a general indication now of the financial picture, do we have some general feedback we can give them in terms of, you know, try and trim? And if so, where do we want them to look at trimming at this point? Do you have anything for them? I guess
Well,
I can lead if you want. Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead, Councilor Osterhoff.
so then I'm still saying I don't have enough information because you say the capital projections are coming. And so what was the capital last year? Can we trim that down this year to help this?
And Carter?
So, Councillor Oosterhoff, we have an asset management plan that in the asset management plan that's been approved by council, we increase our capital budget by 1.5% because if we don't, we're never gonna keep up with the maintenance of our. And really, we're behind anyway, so I'd like to, I would highly encourage council leave the 1.5 increase to the capital budget. I've added that in to that 9.3. I don't have the actual project, but staff will build their budget to make sure it stays within that 1.5% cap. So with that 1.5% built in, we are at 9.33.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Renault?
Is the 300,000 that we are short in 2024, and we're taking out of reserves to pay, is that incorporated into this budget to actually put the money back into the reserves? Because if we go over budget next year, the reserves won't be there to get us out of trouble, and we can't, yeah. But you're saying, you're shaking your head.
Go ahead.
As more information unfolds about what our actual deficit is, because there's a lot of factors that can impact that. It might not be as bad as we thought it was gonna be, because there are various adjustments and audit entries I have to do to get to the bottom line. So it may not be as bad. I'm encouraging staff to, we don't have capital reserve in the 2 departments that would use it right now. Those 2 are pretty much depleted on capital. There was some put in, it's about 72,000 that was put into roads last year. I expect, I'm sorry, in this year for 2024, I expect we may have to use that to offset. So, I can't give you an exact amount of what reserves are or any of that because I still have to figure out where the bottom line is for 2020.
But when you get there,
Mhm.
that number has to go into next year's budget to put back into reserves, right? Somehow or other, we have to build the reserve back up.
Somehow or other we do.
So,
We
So
haven't
am I
even
allowed?
started on, this is all operation. When we get into capital, perhaps part of that 1.5 is not spending on capital, but building the reserve so we can do that. That's a discussion at capital.
Thank you.
But, so I guess to follow on for that, in terms of our traditional use of the reserves has not been for operating purposes. Primarily, we build up reserves to do projects, we draw from the reserves to fund the project. Right, okay, fair enough. So again, important to make the distinction. So while we're talking about operating, we don't allow ourselves to get skewed into the reserve discussion too deeply, because it doesn't really apply to operations.
There are a few instances.
Sure.
The election, we put money
Sure.
away for elections, that's an operating reserve.
Yeah.
But we don't have very many, well, even that's not. No, that's probably the only one.
All right, fair enough. So anybody else on our feedback to staff, you know, I recognize this is not fully informed, but staff is obviously looking for direction so they don't waste effort, I guess, you know, as they get closer to a more accurate starting. So I'm prepared to start that discussion if somebody else has input, but I don't want to preclude. All right, so my feeling is that as much as the service levels that we provided this year were great and generated all kinds of positive phone calls and so on, I don't see that for people's fiscal circumstances that even that 9% is something that our taxpayers are going to find palatable. I don't know tonight, because of that lack of information, I can't provide you with a specific area to do the trimming in. I guess since you're the ones that deliver those services based on our direction, I know this is an arbitrary exercise, but if we ask for, I know we asked for 4, I'm going to call it 5, so it includes the OPP, because the 9 point something includes the OPP. And so I know we essentially asked for 5, we're coming back a little over 9. Why don't we look at maybe 7? And then at least we have, then we can start to have the discussion of, well, if you want to get it down to 7, this is what the impacts to services look like. But right now, I don't think any of us really have a concept of what that means and what it translates to in day-to-day lives. So there's a starting point. Feel free to amend up or down from there, but that's sort of where my mind is at. And we may adjust that once we get the accurate information, but I think it gives staff something to go on. Any thoughts?
Going in after that.
All right, I'm not seeing any major objections.
I support your intent to try to go like this somehow.
Yeah.
And do your magic, because 9 is high, but
And there may be an education process involved in all this. You know, this may be the budget that drives that discussion where yes, you know, at the end of this year, we're going to have a deficit, partially because we actually have a lot to show for what we spent this year. And that generated a lot of positive feedback. So if people understand, if you want to see that level of activity, this is what you have to pay. Maybe this is the year that we undertake a bit of an education process. Maybe that's part of the answer. We'll see as we move forward.
It's important to know, and I know we've had relatively significant increases over the past few years, but that was mostly cost of living driven. This one, while there's still some cost of living issues going on, this one will set your levels of service. So if you do the increase in 1 year, the percentage going after can remain at cost of living. Right? We've been behind in providing a level of service on certain items that council was happy to see. However, it caused a deficit. If we increase this year to a level, then next time it can just be cost of living in the next budget, because we're at the level of service we want to be at. And this is important too, because it's part of a bigger discussion for asset management. We actually have to quantify our level of service for our asset management plan this year think the due date's July. So I'm going to have to get in front of you guys and decide what our level of service is and how we want to quantify that for our asset management plan. So it really could start a bigger discussion in the new year.
Okay. I think we've probably reached a logical conclusion around that one. Strangely enough, we processed a second motion while there was one still on the floor. So I'm gonna go back, and the original motion was to receive this report and direct staff to amend the budget as discussed, which we've just done fairly thoroughly. So I'm gonna call the vote on that particular motion. All those in favor? Okay, that carries. Thank you. All right. Moving on to the next item of our agenda, we have some committee reports to receive. The motion is that the following draft committee minutes be received: the Planning Advisory Committee draft minutes dated November 21st, 2024, the Heritage Elizabethtown-Kitley Committee draft minutes dated November 28th, 2024, and the Emergency Management Program Committee draft minutes dated November 8th, 2024. Looking for a mover and seconder to receive those, please. Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor No. Any discussion, general discussion on any of those sets of minutes? I think there may be some motions coming out of those. Okay, don't see any general discussion, so all those in favor of receiving those? Okay, that carries. Thank you. So coming out of the Planning Advisory Committee, there's a motion that severance B-103-24 for a new lot at 317 Anchorage Bay Road, concession 1, part lot 7. In geographic Elizabethtown, owner of Roth, subject to conditions as detailed in the minutes on pages 2 and 3, be approved. Mover and seconder for that, please. Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Osherhoff. Any discussion around this item? Okay, all those in favor? Carries, thank you. Also out of the Planning Advisory minutes, that severance B-105-24 for a new lot at 831 Peach Street, concession 6, part lot 7. Geographic Elizabethtown? No, that would be geographic Kitley on Peach Street. It's B-105-24. Owner of Abbas. Subject to conditions as detailed in the minutes on page 3, be approved. It's correction of that. Right. Well, okay, so you're prepared to move that? Okay, thank you, Councillor Smith. A seconder for that one? Any? Moved by Councillor Reynolds. Did you need a minute just to confirm something there?
Well, you lost me there. You're on the Planning Advisory Committee?
Yes. Yeah, and there's some motions that came out of that. So on page 3, I believe it was just in transcribing the items of interest for the cover page and the motions. It identifies King Street as being geographic Elizabethtown, but it's geographic Kitley. Okay. Yeah, should be. Are we satisfied with that? Okay, fair enough. In which case, I'll go ahead and call the question then. All those in favor? And opposed of any? Okay, that carries. Thank you. Moving on to another one from the PAC minutes. The motion is that severance B-106-24 for new lot at 6107 Temperance Lake Road, section 6, part lot 37, geographic Elizabethtown, owner of Bruner, subject to conditions as detailed in the minutes on pages 5 and 6, be approved. I'm looking for a mover and seconder there, please. Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Renaud. Any discussion on this one? Okay, all those in favor? And that carries. Thank you. And this is the last one out of the PAC minutes. The severance B-114-24 for a new lot at 11508 Rock Springs Road, concession 11, part lot 21, geographic Elizabethtown, owner of Parkfield and Howard, subject to conditions as detailed in the minutes on pages 7 and 8, be approved. So I need a mover and seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Osterhoff, seconded by Councillor Brayton. Any discussion around this one? Seeing none, all those in favor? And opposed if any? Okay, that carries. Thank you. And that should complete everything for the minutes. Now we are on to bylaws, which there are a number. So the motion is that the mover be granted leave to introduce bylaws number 24-62, being a bylaw to establish a municipal emergency control group and appoint members. 24-63, being a bylaw to confirm proceedings. 24-64, being a bylaw to authorize intermunicipal agreement with the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville. Bylaws 24-65, being a bylaw to authorize a fire protection agreement with the city of Brockville. 24-66, being a bylaw to establish fees and charges for services. And bylaw 24-67, being a bylaw to appoint a person to fill the councillor vacancy. And this shall constitute the first and second reading thereof. I'm looking for a mover and seconder for the batch of first and second. Councillor Brayton moves, seconded by Councillor Smith. Any discussion around these? Okay, all those in favor? That carries, thank you. And we have all those same ones for third reading. Before I read the motion, does any member wish any of these to be broken out and voted on separately? Okay, so the motion then is that bylaws number 24-62, -63, -64, -65, -66, and -67 be given third reading and finally passed, signed, and numbered accordingly. Mover and seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Osterhoff, seconded by Councillor Smith. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you. Alrighty, that moves us on to correspondence. We have one item this evening from the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing. The motion is the correspondence item 1 be received and filed. Mover and seconder for that, please. Moved by Councillor Brayton and seconded by Councillor Renault. Any discussion around this item? Okay, all those in favor then? That carries, thank you. All right, so that brings us on to information items. Does any member have an information item to share with us this evening? Okay, seeing none. Motions and notices of motion. Does any member have a notice of motion at this time? Okay, not hearing any. Public question period. Any members in attendance have any questions for us regarding tonight's agenda? Okay, and did we receive any questions online? Okay, nothing online. So that brings us to our closed meeting, which I will remind everybody actually consists of 3 items. So bear with me here. The motion would be that the regular council meeting adjourn at 8:42 p.m. for a closed meeting regarding one matter under section 239 subsection 2B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, and subsection 2E, litigation or potential litigation, specifically reimbursement for waterline repair, Rockner Cliff Road. One matter under section 239 subsection 2B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, specifically the human resources update. And one matter under subsection 2A regarding the security of the property of the municipality or local board, specifically report PW-24-18 security updates. And so with that, I'm looking for a mover and seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Brayton, seconded by Councillor Smith. All those in favor? Okay, that carries. And so at this point, we will thank members of the public for attending and wish you well and safe travels, and invite you to find something else to do with the rest of your evening.
Or better hand it.
Sorry, Madam Deputy.
I didn't announce
Oh,
to
yeah.
the public that will be
Thank you.
turning my live stream
Yeah,
off.
so for the benefit of the YouTube live stream, we will be turning off the streaming and we will not be coming back live on YouTube. However, the minutes will reflect the reporting out from our discussions in closed session. Thank you, Madam Deputy.